will be this meeting will be recorded and be available after the meeting, and it will be posted on the LCAP website. But in the meantime, we want to thank you so much for being with us this evening. My name is Lisa Borrego, and I'm the Director of Family and Community Engagement, and have the good fortune of being part of the Local Control and Accountability Plan team for San Juan Unified School District. There'll be a little bit more about that in just a moment. But if we might, I'd like to go ahead and hand this over to Laura Mulder, who will give you a little information about our Zoom and the how-tos in our new landscape of the virtual world.
Thank you, Lisa. Welcome, Stacy. You just joined us. We are just getting to some housekeeping pieces. I'd like to share our first housekeeping piece. You'll have the opportunity to enter questions, or if you're a visitor, you can enter comments into the chat box. And how you do that is you will click on the chat button about in the middle of your screen. I've put an icon up on that slide so you can see it. Once you hit the chat box, then on the far right corner, you'll have the opportunity to enter a question or a comment. We have selected to hosts only, so the public will not be able to see the questions going in, but I will make sure that I speak them out loud. The next opportunity, if you would like to speak during the meeting, you could raise your hand. So what you would do is you'd click on the reactions icon, which is towards the far right-hand side, click reactions, and click on the hand. That way I'll be able to see your hand raised. I'll call on you, and then you will press your microphone to unmute yourself. You'll then press your video if you'd like us to see you while you're talking. Once you finish speaking, then please press mute to mute yourself, and press the video icon to stop the video. Once again, we're doing it this way to enhance everybody's viewer experience or meeting experience. I think this would be a good time, Lisa. We'd like to take attendance. So this will give you a great opportunity, everybody to utilize that chat box. Please click on chat and then enter your name in the chat box. This will be an opportunity for us to record who's attended the meeting. Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and give just a minute for that to happen. Co-chair Nelson and co-chair Gonzalez, please go ahead and proceed. This is today's agenda, and there we are. Okay,
thank you, Lisa. Welcome. I want to welcome everyone to our first meeting for the 2020-2021 school year of our Parent Advisory Committee, or PAC. I want to introduce PAC leadership. First of all, I am Tom Nelson, and I am serving you as committee chair of the Parent Advisory Committee, or known as PAC. Heather Gonzalez is our co-chair for the PAC. And supporting our committee is a member of the district's senior leadership team, Lisa Borrego. Lisa is director of the Family Engagement and Partnership Development Department. Also supporting our committee is Laura Mulder. Laura is our LCAP specialist. Most of all, or most, if not all of you have met Laura. Laura sends out most of our staff communications, and she does an excellent job with it. Thank you, Laura. And let's see, we want to mention the function of the work of our committee is to be an advisory committee. By law, we are to provide advice to the governing board of the school district and the superintendent of the school district. Dr. Mike McKibben, who is with us tonight, he is our Board of Education member, who is the board liaison to our committee. Zima Creason is our alternate Board of Education liaison. As a way of welcoming you, I want you to know that my philosophy is leaders are elected or selected to serve. And as chair, I am here to serve you, our LCAP PAC members. I have had the honor of serving on this committee since 2016. Damaris Canton and I are the longest serving members. But my institutional knowledge and experience working with the district and committee and with parent groups is at your service as PAC members. Please feel free to reach out to me with questions and information on anything. On our agenda is an opportunity for PAC members to introduce themselves. And now I will go ahead and relinquish the meeting floor to Lisa to move us through the agenda. So Lisa, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mrs. Gonzalez, is there anything you'd like to say at this time?
Just thank you all for being here. Really excited about this year. Similarly to Tom, I think we all have servants' hearts and hearts of service, and let's get to it.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Gonzalez. At this time, I would like to ask that Superintendent Kern, we thank you so much, sir, for being here today, but we'd love to have some comments and welcome on your part. Superintendent Kern.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate you kind of taking over this role of heading up the committee when Adam moved on. So first, let me say thank you to you, and thanks to Tom and Heather for the roles that you're playing as well. We have quite a few staff on here today, so hopefully they'll be able to help out, answer questions as those come up as well. It's been a challenging 5 months to say the least. We closed on March 15th or 13th and started school again 5 months later today on the 13th. And I'm just really appreciative of all the work that so many members of our team have been doing over the last couple of months just to really get ready for today. You always want the day to start off in perfect fashion, and that wasn't quite the case today, with some members of our students and staff as well unable to get on as we had some hardware malfunctions, we were down for about a little over an hour for some of our folks. But as challenging a year as this lies ahead, we're still excited. I was out at a couple schools this morning, and there's still the staff that are there. They're energized. They're here for the kids, and we're all here for the kids. And it's, as I said, a little different, but we still have a job to do to educate and meet the needs of our students. So we're excited about the upcoming year, and we appreciate each and every one of you who have availed yourself of this committee. We appreciate it. Voice is really important to the board and to myself. We continue to expand opportunities, whether it's for student voice, community voice, and we want to continue to do that. And that's kind of really a real strength of Lisa and her team as well. So again, thanks to everybody, and I'll turn it back over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Superintendent Kern. Dr. McKibben, we'd appreciate a board liaison update at your convenience.
Welcome, everybody. It's nice. I see there are 27 of us on right now. That's terrific for a first meeting. As you know, there are some changes that are going to be happening, and we're going to be talking about those today. But our role continues to be to serve all of the children of San Juan, the more than 38,000 that are out there, and particularly looking at the targeted populations, the low-income, homeless, foster children, and English learners. And we will continue that. You are the most important group of many looking at these kinds of things, and we so value your input. We're so pleased that we have a number of students that join us on these meetings, as well as required by law. The majority of the people on this committee are parents of students in the district, and then there are community members as well as students. And all of us play a critical role. And as you'll hear from, as we talk about today, that we're going to be moving pretty quickly. Indeed, by the next meeting, we'll have a draft plan that we'll be talking about. So get ready, get going, and please please participate in the discussions and so forth, because that's the way we get better, is by listening to each other and moving on and acting for the best of our kids. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. McKibben. We appreciate that. At this time, I'd like to ask our Senior Director, Kristen Schnepp, to share a few words.
I thank you guys all for being here tonight. And I want to reiterate what Mr. Kern said in regards to Lisa. I am so grateful that Lisa is willing to step in and fill the role that Adam left in the spring of last year. We did so much work around stakeholder engagement and really trying to use the continuous improvement cycle to be responsive to the needs of our community. And I think, you know, when we were looking at how do we continue the work that we started with the strategic plan last year, Lisa is such a natural fit for really listening, using inquiry, and making sure that as many of our community voices are heard as possible. So I'm so grateful for Lisa to be spearheading this. And I also want to thank Tom and Heather. They have spent so much time preparing and making sure that this goes smoothly, along with Laura. So I am ready to share some of the work that we've done this summer. We've worked so hard, and I think Lisa is ready to kind of share the next steps with where we are moving.
Thank you, Kristen. We appreciate that feedback. At this time, for those of you that are just joining us, thank you so much for being here. This is the Local Control Accountability Plan Parent and Community Advisory Meeting. We are going to be moving into the introduction of our Parent Advisory Committee members. And so I'd like to turn it back over to Ms. Gonzalez for that icebreaker, and she'll be sharing kind of what we'll be doing with our members specifically. And again, we thank you as guests for those of you that are here to be observing, but you'll hear specifically from our PAC members in this part of the meeting. Thank you, Heather. Go ahead.
Right. Thank you so much, Miss Lisa. All right. So we're, as Lisa said, going to be asking our LCAP PAC and board advisors to participate in just a brief icebreaker to start off on a positive. We have a lot of important work to do throughout this year. And so we're looking forward to saying hello to old friends and inviting on new PAC members. Laura, I'm going to be asking you, since you have taken role, if you can introduce each member that is here, and then members, when your name is called, if you can let us know if you are a returning LCAP PAC member or if you are a soon-to-be PAC member, and just offer one word demonstrating your hope or a positive intention for either tonight's outcome or this year in general. And I'll go ahead and start off first. I am Heather. I am a returning LCAP PAC member. And one word that I would like to leave on the table that is a positive intention for tonight is clarity. All right.
All right, thanks, Heather. Tom, would you like to go next?
Okay, sure. Tom Nelson, chair of the committee, served on it since I think 2016. And I guess let's see, the one word that I would have is hope. So thank you, and I want to thank all the PAC members that are attending, and we look forward to working with you over the coming year. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Caroline, would you like to go next?
Sure, I'm happy to. I'm Caroline Castaneda, and I am also a parent on the PAC here, and this is my second year, and my word is opportunity.
Great, thank you. Chelsea, how about you?
Hi, good evening. This is Chelsea Kelly. I am a returning PAC member, and my word is connectedness, and in terms of children feeling connectedness.
Beautiful.
Thank you, wonderful. All right, Kim Brown.
Hi.
There you go.
I am Kim Brown, and I am a returning LCAP member. My word would be truth.
Nice. All right. Thank you. Keenan, would you like to go next?
Yes, my name is Kenan Chachkovich. I am a returning student member. It's my second year, and my word is understanding.
Great. Thank you. Stephanie, would you like to go next?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Colbert. I'm a returning LCAP member. I believe this is my second or third year. I'm a parent, and my word, communication.
Could you repeat that, Stephanie, your word?
Clear communication.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Zena.
Yeah, hi, how are you? So I'm a returning member. I try to help the English speaker, the English learner speaker, and my word is interference.
Good one.
Okay. Let's see. Did I get everybody? If I've missed any committee members, feel free to unmute.
I believe Beth is here.
Who?
Beth, new student member, or are you just doing the existing?
Just the existing. We're really happy to have our nominees here tonight. We did invite them just so they can get a little bit familiar with the learning plan. The nominees go before the board for approval on August 25th. So for tonight, they're guests.
Got it. Got it. Well, thank you, everyone, and welcome. And we're really excited again about the great work that we're getting ready to embark on. And we're also hopeful about what we're going to be hearing tonight and the potential for solutions. So thank you. I'll go ahead and hand it back to Miss Lisa.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay, may I just make this is Laura, if I can just make one quick comment. Isis, Beatrice has now joined us.
So for those of you that are on the call, we have a bilingual parent who we are also coordinating bilingual, translation. So thank you for your patience.
Yes, I'm actually on the phone with her right now, setting up and to see if she can sign in. If not, we'll go with Plan B. And she has a iPhone, and I can FaceTime her the view of the screen and translate at the same time. So
thank you, Isis.
No problem.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thanks everyone for your patience. We are in the process of finding ways that we can provide access to our meetings for non-English speaking families, and we've got a couple things that are in the works, so stay tuned. All right. We have, I believe, 9 PAC members joining us, Lisa.
Okay, so with that being 9, at this time, that does not qualify as a quorum for business to take place. However, that does not in any way prevent the continuance of this meeting. However, we just want to document that and record that at this time, the LCAP PAC does not have a quorum present, which means we're not able to vote on any items or approve any items. However, we can continue for discussion and comment of these items on today's agenda. So thank you for sharing that, Laura. If you would like to go ahead, Laura, and share a little bit about visitor comments, if there's anyone online who'd like to share.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. If you're a visitor at tonight's meeting and you would like to share a comment, we'd love to hear your comments. You have 2 ways to share, as we previously discussed. If you'd like to enter in the chat box, you can click on chat and then enter your comment in the chat box, or you can take yourself off mute, and if you'd like, you can start your video, and then you can state your comment verbally. Just want to note, as a visitor, we are not allowed to respond to your comments per the Brown Act bylaws, which our committee follows. But we will certainly record your comments for a future agenda item. And additionally, we have a 2-minute limit on comments. So if you'd like to comment, if you could just limit them to 2 minutes, that'd be great. So at this point, do we have any visitor comments? And I think, Lisa, you'll need to stop sharing your screen. So there we go. So if anybody would like to raise their hand, I don't see any hands raised. Let me look in the chat box.
Question, or not question, but we were able to get her, it says iPhone Garcia, and she is able to see everything on there if you can see her.
Let's see. Let me look. Yep, I see her. Thank you, Isis.
No problem. So we're just trying to figure out if we can do it through the phone or not. But just to let you know, she's on here.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. I don't see any comments in the chat box or any hands raised, so we will go ahead and move forward.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much, Laura, for that. We'd like to go ahead and move forward with, at this time, because we do not have a quorum, we're not able to approve any minutes in today's meeting. However, when we return to our meeting at the end of the month, we will certainly have our minutes from our last meeting of last year, March, and then, of course, today's meeting. So with that, Mr. Nelson, would you like to share a little bit about what this year's looking like? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sorry, thank you. Okay, yeah, so our LCAP committee is normally involved in dealing with the LCAP plan and focusing on it. However, due to the COVID pandemic, then the LCAP plan is not the LCAP plan for 20 that we would normally have approved in June of this year is put aside, is waived by the state legislature. Instead, the state legislature has put in place a learning continuity attendance plan, typically called the Learning Continuity Plan, that the school board will need to adopt by, I believe it's September 30th of this year. So between now and September 30th is when our committee will be focusing on that plan and looking at that plan for any, to provide input and to try to engage the community and whatever recommendations and advice and suggestions. So for our members and the members of our parent advisory committee cover a pretty broad range. So what's really valuable is for example, the students can give their perspective from being a student in the classroom, as well as the many parents on the committee that can give their perspective. And all of this will hopefully help staff put together the continuity plan for the school board. Later in the year, I believe it's in the November timeframe, there will be a budget communication that the school board will also approve. So we'll be involved in that. And that's, I think that kind of summarizes what our committee will be involved in between now and roughly December. And by December, with everything being very much in a state of flux where nobody really knows what things will look like in December, and so a lot of the decisions will be fluid, and we'll be putting off and deciding until probably the December timeframe as to how we will be working with the LCAP that will come in place for the following school year. So let's see. Yeah, we have, there were 5 open positions that we had on the LCAP committee. And so we have 5 members that have been nominated by our board liaisons, Dr. McKibben and Ms. Creason. And until further notice, we will be operating like pretty much all other organizations that have regular meetings, using a virtual platform and Zoom. So I think, does that pretty much cover? And I think I'll go ahead and turn it back over for you to pick up from there.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I appreciate that. And, you know, if I could just make a quick comment before we move into the presentation. It couldn't be more true that this is, you know, 6 months ago, this is not someplace where any of us expected that we would be not only in this committee, but also for our children and for our schools, and beginning the school year this way. So again, we appreciate the time and commitment and effort of everyone here on today's call to be present and to be engaged and to want to become a part of understanding and learning and inputting and providing feedback to a very new learning landscape. So with that said, I'd like to just acknowledge many of my colleagues on the call who are also staff here at the school district. And as we go through the learning continuity plan, there may be opportunity for participation or their involvement if there are questions of the committee as we go through the presentation. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and begin. Today's presentation is really the beginning of providing context to the LCAP PAC regarding the learning continuity and attendance plan that was provided to school districts approximately 2 months ago, regarding the expectation that they were going to have of our school districts as we moved into the 2021 school year. As Mr. Nelson mentioned, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and with the recent decisions to have to close schools and make many adjustments in education, there was legislation passed that allowed for a different approach in the way in which our school districts had to respond to that, as well as how they would be held accountable for reporting that, not only to the state or our counties, but also to all of you as parents and community members and constituents who are experiencing this as parents, as students. And so today's presentation is going to provide you all an overview of this learning continuity plan and provide you information about what's expected to be in the learning continuity plan, so that as we come back together at the end of the month, in which staff will make a presentation regarding the draft learning continuity plan to all of you for feedback, that this presentation will have given you some context and some idea of what we as participants should be expecting to see in that plan. With that, some of the key takeaways that we'd want to recognize first and foremost is that for the purposes of our 2021 school year, there will not be a local control accountability plan. Instead, it is being replaced by the learning continuity plan, which is what we'll be discussing today. In no way does it mean that we are still not going to be responsible for the development of local control accountability plan. However, that activity will be taking place more than likely after November, December, as Mr. Nelson mentioned, as things continue to present themselves as far as what the expectations are that we receive from the legislature. But in the meantime, our focus this year is about the learning continuity plan and really memorializing the planning process that San Juan Unified has already undergone in the development for this opening of the 2021 school year. And memorializing is to say that the purpose of this report is to ensure that we have summarized and reported and captured all of the hard work that has taken place in the development of what we learned at the end of last year, and how we are working to improve the experience for you as parents and students in the learning that will be taking place during the 2021 school year. So this learning continuity plan is really to highlight how a school district is doing that and how we are able to communicate that to our community in a way in which you as parents and students understand the responsibility that we have in serving you in the area of educational services and supports. It is still expected that we will have to provide a budget parent overview that has traditionally been a part of the local control accountability plan process, but we still don't have final dates as to when that is expected. It currently is looking like we'll have that discussion in, as Mr. Nelson said, November for an approval in December, but we will provide more information to the LCAP PAC as that becomes more clear. So today is going to be really an opportunity, and we do have this PowerPoint posted so that you can review this and refer to this in the future, because it's going to become a very important part of our work. But I want to briefly go over some of the information around the continuity plan. And I really want to make sure that as a PAC, we have an opportunity to learn about this and ask questions for clarity so that we can provide the support that we need to our schools and to our students. And that is, the purpose of this plan is to really provide some guidance for the 2021 school year, to really provide that stability of understanding of how our dollars are being used to support our students during this COVID crisis, and how schools are utilizing those resources to directly support them in this experience of a COVID-19 pandemic crisis. So it's very important that as a group, we understand that this plan is in response to the current circumstances that we are in this situation of a health crisis of the COVID closures. And then also it's intended to balance the needs of all stakeholders, including our educators, our parents, our student and community members. So this again is intended to be a document where any individual, be it parent, educator, community member, or student, can understand what our school district is doing in order to support and serve our students. In addition, this plan is expected to provide descriptions in how we will address learning loss, gaps in learning that may have taken place as a result of the transition to distance learning or the school closures in general. That we will ensure that we are always engaging meaningfully with our stakeholders, making sure that we are having two-way communication and maintaining transparency throughout this experience, because this is entirely something completely new and unexpected for all of us. And then also ensuring that we are never taking our eye off the importance of all students, with specific focus on ensuring that our unduplicated pupils, students with unique needs, and students who are experiencing homelessness are also having those needs met in a way that best supports them in their unique needs within their groups. And then also, we are ensuring that through this plan that we are providing a communication and report on how we are providing access to our necessary devices, technology devices, and connectivity for distance learning, providing resources and supports to address student and staff mental health and social emotional health and well-being, and then how we're also continuing to provide school meals for students. So this plan has very specific requests of school districts to highlight it particularly, so that we can call out and identify those resources, those strategies, those activities that we are going to be deploying for this 2021 school year to support our students, our families, and our schools. What's very important to know that there is a slightly, well, there's a big difference between the LCAP and the continuity plan process. And it's very important because this plan does need to be approved by our school board by no later than September 30th, 2020. That is actually by statute, which means it's the law that we are required to develop a plan, get stakeholder feedback, revise the plan, refine the plan to ensure that that voice is heard, then move that through our board process so that it could be approved by September 30th. It is a requirement of the state for that report to be submitted. So we have a very, very short timeline that unfortunately no district in the state of California can change. We are all mandated to have that report completed by that time. So there are some considerations in that I will bring up in just a moment that help us understand, because trust me, when I heard that, I'm like, how are we going to do that? But there is some considerations that were brought in doing that. Also, our school district, after we approve that plan, will have to submit that plan to the County Office of Ed no later than 5 days after we adopt it from our board. And the County Office of Education, unlike the LCAP, they do not approve the continuity plan. However, they can provide recommendations after they review our plan in case there may be something that they may see may be of additional consideration or value. So unlike the LCAP, our County Office of Ed does not approve this plan. However, they do provide recommendation for our plan for consideration. So there are some slight differentiations in this plan. In addition, related to the template, and what I mean by that is the actual document that we have to complete and submit for review and approval to our school board, what this learning continuity plan does not contain, so it's different than the local control accountability plan, is this plan does not require us to discuss an annual update, to do a plan summary, to specifically mention goal statements or our why statements, which are parts of a process that we use in the development of our local control accountability plan, as well as setting up our goals and how we're going to reach those goals, and then expenditure tables related to budget and revenue. These are items that, again, given the consideration of the very short time frame through legislation, they did make some adjustments so that there were specific requests of our school districts, but things like what I'm showing you on the screen will not be required elements of this particular plan. And the template that we are going to be required to use has been made public. It is posted on the CDE website. And if any of you are curious of what it looks like, it just currently in its draft, not even our document, but just what the template looks like, we're happy to share that with you so you can see how it looks different than an LCAP. But it's important for you all to know this as part of your role as an LCAP member, because we have a different responsibility in looking at this document. And this document is very much about a snapshot and capture in time of where we are today in response to the COVID crisis and the closures and the reaction and responses that we have as a school district to support our students and our schools. Some important dates to share with you is the California Department of Ed actually released the template that I was just mentioning to our school districts on August 1st. Let me say that one more time, August 1st. Today is August 13th. So you can see we definitely are trying to be very mindful of the time frames as this is happening very quickly in real time, and we're wanting very much to be transparent with our stakeholders, with our stakeholder groups in this process. While this may be a very short period of time in which we're expected to complete this plan and have it approved by our school board, in no way does that mean that we are not going to be thoughtful and considerate and intentional in the way that we support and present information to our community, to our families, and to our students about what our school district is doing to support education in this 2021 school year. So while it may be a short timeline, that does not change the commitment that we have in San Juan to ensure that we are making every effort to be as clear in that area as possible. But it does allow to recognize that we are reporting information and submitting it by September 30th, when we will have had up to maybe 6 weeks of school. So it will be something that will be a fluid document where we intend to revisit, and certainly will be part of our continued conversation for the local control accountability plan discussion as we begin to get reconnected to that work after we get through this learning continuity plan. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, it is the case at this time that it's still expected that school districts submit a budget overview for parents. So we still provide the use of funds, and we report that, and it's currently set to be December 15th. I'm going to go a little bit over the requirements of the plan. And this is a really important slide. If I might just make note for you all, this particular slide really highlights the actual sections of the continuity plan. So as PAC members, as parents, as students, when you are thinking about or you are wondering specifically what might be in this plan or what we are expected to report on and respond to, these are the areas where we will be providing additional information about and be building that content out. As you can all see, there are 7 areas, and they are broad areas, but within the template there are specific questions that they ask us more detail about these particular sections. But I bring this slide up and encourage you to see this slide as you look at it from a PAC member lens, so that when we come back together at the end of August, you'll see that there will be information shared in all of these areas about the work that's being done for our students and our schools and our families. It is the case that in our learning continuity plan, we are expected to continue to conduct stakeholder engagement and to collect feedback. It is something, as Superintendent Kern said, and Dr. McKibben, we are committed to continue to increase stakeholder engagement and ensure that all of our students and families and community members, to the best of our efforts, have an opportunity to provide feedback. We will continue to, we have 2 required parent groups that we must share the continuity plan with, and that is our Parent Advisory Committee, our LCAP PAC, as well as our DLAC. Those 2 committees are required stakeholder engagement groups that we are expected to share this plan with, to provide feedback and collect those that feedback and those questions, so that we can have our superintendent respond back to those. And then those items are also in consideration for refinement of the plan before it goes to public comment and for board review. So stakeholder engagement remains a requirement of this process, and also being mindful, while we already know the challenges to connect with families who may have limited access to technology or may have second language challenges, we still have the responsibility to do everything we can to make contact with various stakeholders of our community, and not solely through digital platforms like Zoom, but considering one-on-one interviews over the phone or conference calls via telephone, surveys. So this will be a very important aspect of our work. And I really did appreciate the first time I met with Tom and Heather as co-chairs and as staff support to them. It's very important to them, and I know to this group, that there be a call to action to ensure that we are having as many parents and students provide feedback into the work that's being done through our district. So there will be some additional information at the end of this presentation about how to be more involved and that call to action, so that you all can share that information with your peers, with your other parents, and make sure that you are encouraging them to participate. I'm just going to briefly go over some of the topic areas. Again, we're fortunate enough to have some other staff members on the call, and if I'm way off base, Kristen, please, or Melissa, please don't hesitate. But I'm just going to briefly share with all of you what they are expecting school districts to report around. And so again, this is some context when we are looking at what is going to be expected to be inside our learning continuity document. And that is the fact that while we may not be in an in-person instructional setting at this time, it is still the expectation and hope that we prepare to be ready for when that opportunity comes for our students and for our teachers. And so it'll be important for us to have a plan about what that looks like, and how we would go about ensuring that it was safe for our students to return, and how we would go about having that transition, from an educational perspective, an instructional perspective, as well as from a safety perspective. We'll also have to take into consideration a recognition that it's very hard not to accept that there was definitely learning loss during this time because of transition, and so trying to understand how we connect with our students and assess them and ensure that we are doing everything we can to help them, support them as they transition back into a more formalized, more structured setting, as well as recognizing that there may be students or student groups that may have a greater significance of learning loss, that we do not want to see that achievement gap grow any bigger, and so we want to ensure that we're finding strategies and supports to ensure that we're addressing those learning loss needs of those students. When it comes to the distance learning program, which is currently the program that we're all in, as you all know, the learning plan is requiring us also to recognize that with this change comes a potential change in our staff roles and responsibilities. So as we think about how we are working as staff, and I can say for my department, we're having to rethink the way that we support our students and families from our family and community engagement department, in which, as you all know, we can't assemble together. We can't have a class together where we're all in the same place. So what might some of those staff roles and responsibilities look like in this new time, or during this time during the 2021 school year? So we'll be expected to share information about our approach in that, and also talk about the continuity of instruction, and how we're ensuring that while we may be in this distance learning landscape, how are we ensuring that our students are having access to a full curriculum that provides them with a learning experience that is comparable to that of an in-class setting. And again, that would have to be taking into consideration that while we're not in the classroom, it's still the expectation that our students receive regular instruction, and they receive rigorous instruction, and an access to course offerings. So that continuity of instruction would go to that aspect of our service to students. Also, we have to talk about pupil participation and progress. It's going to be very important that we know how our students are connected and how we are supporting them during this distance learning time. That also, along with our families and our staff, to ensure that they have all the resources that they need to be successful in this distance learning landscape, but also taking into account how we are going to measure their participation, their pupil progress, and the time value of pupil work. So it's a complete reconsideration of how we would monitor that progress for students. If we were in a classroom, how would we manage this in a distance learning landscape? And that's what we'll be expected to be reporting on. In addition, we'll have a responsibility to share information about pupil engagement and outreach, providing our specific strategies, actions, and supports that we'll take to ensure engagement and outreach, including strategies for pupils who are absent from distant learning and outreach to pupils and their parents or guardians. We understand that this is a very different experience, and so there may be students and families that have not directly connected back to the distance learning program, or may still be considering various options for education. So how do we ensure that we are reaching out to all of our families and being connected, and seeing and hearing from everyone within our community? Also, our supports for pupils with unique needs. It's important that we recognize that there are our student groups who may experience a greater challenge during this distance learning program time, and so it will be very important for us to report out how we are approaching our support for our English learners, our students with exceptional needs, and also our pupils in foster care and our homeless youth. So again, while we recognize that it's important for us to have a comprehensive strategy for all students, the California Department of Ed and State are absolutely focusing, as we have in our LCAP process, the importance of making sure that we are seeing and hearing and learning and responding to the needs of our unique learners and what their supports might look like. Pupil learning loss, obviously that is a big consideration, and one that I think, throughout the state, we're trying to identify ways that we can identify strategies and intervention and supports that will help address what that pupil learning loss looks like, and then how we can respond to support our students in improving that and closing that gap of loss. And again, recognizing that call out of our unique learners and the needs that they have, our English learners, as well as our students with exceptional needs and our foster and homeless youth. So I think, as you can see, the similarities of this plan along with the local control accountability plan are asking us as a group, make sure that you are looking at the supports that we're offering our students cross district, as well as our groups with unique needs, to ensure that we are being thoughtful and we are advancing their needs as well. And then also, of course, there'll be discussion about how we will use our resources to support the efforts that we will describe in our plan, and then how we're also going to be increasing and improving those services for those students who of unduplicated pupils. So there will be a part of our plan in which we will provide information about how the resources that we have will be utilized and how they will be directed to support our students in this distance learning landscape, with a lot of the considerations that I've just shared. That is that part. We're going to talk really quickly about our mental health and social well-being. Again, it's a really interesting plan because it's really calling out for schools to report on the activities that they are doing to support the social and emotional well-being of pupils and staff. So through this plan, there'll be information that will be shared about how we're going about supporting our staff, what we are offering our staff, as well as supporting our students and community, or how we're engaging with our community partners to ensure that we are creating wraparound services or a safety net of support for our students and families. Also, it'll be important that we recognize that professional development is really critical at this time, in understanding that this experience that we're having right now is profound, and one that none of us could have expected. And there may be many families or students, staff who may have had or are experiencing trauma as a result of this this COVID-19 crisis and this change. And so it's important for us to be responsive and to support and to encourage and identify ways in which we can be positive contributors to improving and addressing those needs of those students and staff who may have trauma and impact as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then, of course, we need to be mindful of the way in which we are supporting our students in the area of school nutrition, how we are providing access, and how we are providing access to food, nutritional meals, how we are distributing those meals, what kind of safety precautions we are taking in order to ensure that there are no barriers to our students from being able to receive those meals in a timely fashion, regardless of the fact that we are in a closed school setting, but rather in this distance learning setting. So we will need to report on school nutrition as well. And then finally, and again, this is very similar to that of the local control accountability plan. This report asks us again to ensure that we are calling out how we are supporting our foster youth, English learners, and low-income youth, and providing increased or improved services that are specifically focused on supporting those individual groups to ensure that they are receiving the resources they need to be successful and to help create equity and access for those individuals who may have struggles that may look different than other families and other communities. And so there is a section of the plan that is specifically dedicated to our increased or improved services for foster youth and English learners and low income. And so what is true about this section is that you may see in the plan or in the presentation of our learning continuity plan that these students will be mentioned in other parts of the learning continuity plan, because on a whole they will be represented in those sections. But the state wanted specifically to call out this section and ensure that there's a way in which individuals could could read and understand specifically the activities for these groups. So with that, we are going to talk about next steps. And we're going to talk about the fact that, as I mentioned before, we have a very short timeline to move forward in this work. And so what we are going to be doing this month is we are sharing with you as a local control accountability plan parent advisory committee the overview of the learning continuity plan. And so we wanted to provide you a framework for what you will be asked to be involved in our next meeting of August 27th. And at that time, there will be a draft continuity plan presentation to our local, to the PAC as well as to the DLAC to provide feedback and input. So the purpose of today's meeting was to provide you with some background information, allow you to ask questions, and ask for any other additional resources that you may need in preparation for that, because we do know that it's a very large ask. And again, thank you to those new members who will be board approved soon and will become active members officially for our August 27th meeting. So thank you for being here and wanting to learn more about this continuity plan. And then also in August, we will be engaging first with our LCAP PAC and DLAC, but then from that point forward with other stakeholder groups to present the draft learning continuity plan for feedback and input. It is our intention to carry on the work that was started last year through your collaboration and partnership with Adam in building stakeholder engagement for our students, for our community, and for our families, and to ensure that we are broadening that net so that we have more opportunities for participation. Again, given that this is such a short timeline, it's our intention to make an absolute effort to engage as many families and students as we can during the time period that we have. But again, this is just the beginning of what we hope will be an ongoing partnership with our stakeholders to continue to provide us feedback. In September, which is like 2 weeks away, we're going to present the draft learning continuity plan to the school board for public comment. That is another opportunity for our community members, our parents, and our students to review the plan and provide public comment to the board as they consider the plan and allow staff to take that feedback and integrate it into the plan.
Sorry. It's just I'm the interpreter. If there's a possible way that you could take a pause between the slides, that would be great, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Okay.
So let me know when I can go back, start up again.
Okay, no, that's okay. Just in between when you switch to slides, just take a pause for just 3 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. My apologies.
Thank you.
So on this slide, again, we'll be presenting the draft continuity plan to the school board for public comment on September 8th. At that time, feedback from our stakeholders, any stakeholder engagement, surveys, focus groups, listening sessions, as well as the feedback from the LCAP and DLAC will be considered for any refinement of the plan. And then it will be submitted for final approval to the school board on September 22nd. So the presentation tonight, I want to share with you a call to action. And that call to action is to ask that you, again, thank you so much for your commitment to be here tonight, but we really look forward to having you join us on August 27th and our other LCAP PAC members, as well as any members of the public who would like to join us. That is where we will be presenting the draft plan for your feedback and input. So it's a wonderful opportunity, an important opportunity to hear from our LCAP PAC kind of what their experiences and now with some context, how we might be able to work together to continue to look at the supports and services for our students and families, and see how we can integrate that into the plan. Also knowing that it's the beginning of a conversation with our stakeholders, so we will continue to work through a continuous improvement cycle where we will continue to share this information back with the PAC and have ongoing conversations with our community about how we're serving our students and families. Also, we'd love it for you to have you check out our LCAP website for updates on our stakeholder engagement events. Please share with other parents, students, and community members who may be interested in learning more about this or providing their feedback. We will communicate with you opportunities that will be coming available. We just started school, so we are still securing dates for stakeholder events, but would love to have you join those events if they fit in your schedule, as well as have you invite folks to share their input in these different forums. And then finally, please feel free to reach out to myself, Heather, or Tom if you have any questions about the plan. If you would like more information or more detail about it. I do realize that this is a lot of information, and for some this is the first time, and we were just getting comfortable with the local control accountability plan, and here we have a slightly different plan that has now been placed on our plates for consideration. So I thank you for what will be the beginning of a partnership, the beginning of an open dialogue and communication. And again, while this is a very new platform for us, I believe there's ways that we can engage together as a group and ensure that we're doing good things for kids and good things for families and our schools. So with that, I will pause.
Oh, let's see. Oh, pardon? What was that last thing you said?
I said, with that, I will pause.
Okay.
So that completes the presentation. So Laura, at this time, are there any visitor comments?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, so Beatrice, I'm the interpreter again. Beatrice actually had a question about, will this, now that all this is going on, will this new plan or what we're drafting also ensure that the EL students will have ELD with credited teachers every day?
I'm not sure. I mean, there is an aspect of this plan that requires us to report on ELD instruction. But at this time, I don't have the answer to that, as the plan is still in development, but it's certainly something that we can make note of and we can do follow-up on.
Okay.
Okay,
This is Laura. I'm so sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. So this is an opportunity for our visitors to provide some feedback. After this, then our PAC members will have the opportunity to ask questions. So are there any visitors out there that would like to raise their hand and ask a question? If so, just feel free to raise your hand, or you can enter it in the chat box.
Laura, if I might, there was a question from Beatrice, and I apologize. Was there someone online who had a response or wanted to comment on that?
Yeah, Lisa, I wanted to comment on the ELD instruction.
Thank you. Go ahead, Melissa.
So our ELD teachers have time to provide designated ELD to students who need it within the distance learning program. And so that is something that it is written into our agreements with our Teachers Association. And it will be something that is a part of the plan, but that is a piece that is already already in motion because it's already developed into the distance learning model and set time for designated ELD. And integrated ELD, the ELD standards, we identified those as a part of our lesson plan development for the distance learning program model. So that is another piece that has been elevated and strengthened from the spring.
Thank you for that information.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lisa, for looping back.
Certainly. My apologies, Laura, if you'd like, if there are any visitors at this time that would like to comment.
Yes, no worries. Thank you, Lisa. We have Lisa who would like to ask about special ed. Will that be covered? Is that something we can comment on? I know Caroline will be asking a question about special ed as well, but we can, Elisa, I think what we can do is you can contact us or we can reach back out to you for elaboration on that if it doesn't come up in the committee members' comments. Will that be satisfactory? You can put that in the chat box, Elisa. Okay, thank you. We will note your comment. I think that's it, Lisa.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to invite committee members. Again, Laura will identify committee members who may have questions and hands raised. So I'll return this back to Laura.
Thank you. So committee members, if you'd like to speak out loud, just feel free to raise your hand and I will call on you, and just make sure you unmute your video, or you can also put it in the chat box. It looks like right now we have Chelsea. Chelsea's got a question. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to sort of circle back to a question that we actually asked at our last LCAP meeting. I think it was actually Tom's question, and I would hope that the district's continuity plan will be addressing the number of students by ethnicity that have not engaged in any distance learning, either in the spring or again now, and the plan to reach out to them and connect with them to get them involved in the current distance learning program.
Lisa, I would like to speak to that as well. This is Melissa.
Thank you, Ms. Bassanelli. Please go ahead.
So daily attendance keeping is a part of the distance learning plan for this year moving forward. And so each day we're taking attendance, and attendance is factored by a combination of participation in online activities, as well as, and that includes live participation or asynchronous participation, which would be completion of tasks through online activities, as well as the completion of assessments, and also individual interaction between a student or the parent. And so we will be tracking that daily, which will give us more specific information about students who are not engaged so that we can strengthen our safety net process. And so with that daily attendance taking also comes with all of the other data that you just talked about, because that is connected to the student's ID. So that will be a strengthened piece moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Bassanelli. I appreciate that. Laura, are there any other comments?
I do not see any hand raises. If you have a, oh, actually, Stephanie just put something into the chat box. Stephanie, would you like to ask your question, or would you like me to ask the question? If so, you can feel free to come off mute.
Sorry, I had to flip screens.
No worries.
Okay, so I had asked the question because I see that we had, I think it was trying to count back from all the slides. I think it was slide number 23, 24. the social, emotional, and the mental health slide. So basically, I see that we kind of discussed around everything, just learning and everything else, and the social, emotional, people have been targeting about that, and the mental health concerns. But there's one thing I do see lacking is the physical health regarding students and staff. And so I didn't know if LCAP was going to be monitoring like the metric data out there on how does it affect with this COVID pandemic of students being affected with the COVID, because we don't know if some students or staff are affected with it or dealing with the sickness now, and that have to log in with distant learning. And so how are we reaching out to families that are going through this process? So I didn't know if LCAP, this team will be reviewing that, because I don't want to leave that as that's just a slip in the gap, or just ignore that, because everybody's so concentrated on just like the mental and everything that's going on in the household and how the kids are feeling, but who is dealing with it? And then it also has to deal with the educational part, and then it will affect like the mental, like of students finding out on, oh, you had COVID, oh, I don't want to be next to you, and like later on. So how are we reaching out to families about that? So that's one thing I have been seeing throughout the state, is basically the actual physical health of students, family, and staff. That's it.
Thank you, Stephanie. We are going to go ahead and make note of that question and do some additional research. I would also encourage that we bring that information back to the August 27th meeting so that we can ensure that we're responding and highlighting to that health aspect and that consideration for our students and for our staff. So thank you for that comment.
Are there any other PAC members that would like to ask a question? Caroline, I don't want to put you on the spot. I know earlier in the chat box you asked a question, so if you would like to address it, now would be a great time.
Okay, no, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to comment. First, I just want to say how, despite it's a bit counterintuitive, but having the ability to do things by Zoom has actually, for me, made it possible for me to attend more board meetings, for example, and be more informed. So I really appreciate you sending out those link reminders of when they are and how to get on them. And then specifically for the topic we are on now, I just want to emphasize how much the kids with special needs and IEPs, those are families that are getting triple impacted. They have so many systems to navigate that any help that we can provide in a school setting, and especially around the learning loss, and especially for those kids that are moving like between kind of the, going from a 6th to a middle school, or going from 8th to high school, how can we support those families better?
Thank you. Ms. Adolfson, might you be able to share a little information about that?
It froze right after she started talking about special ed students. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the question for me?
Sure. It's
you're frozen again.
Can you hear me now?
All right. Can you hear me? My iPad keeps freezing.
Oh, no, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so my question really just has to do with how are we supporting families with special ed students, because they are families who are navigating multiple systems, whether it's developmental services, health, school, juvenile justice, all kinds of systems. So how can we better support those families now?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, we recently sent out a newsletter to our case managers in regards to some resources. And I think Kimber is on too. She gave us a great deal of information and background knowledge that was super helpful with online resources. But we are also, our teams are working together on creating some parent opportunities for possibly doing workshops. I know that a couple schools have already had something like that going, and we're trying to make sure that we can find what are the needs, what are the supports we can provide, because I think the biggest thing is the communication. You're kind of out there on your own with your child, and we definitely hear that, and we want to make sure that we can support to the best of our ability. So it is something that is definitely on our mind and things that we are planning moving forward. So I do appreciate the comment, because it is definitely on our minds going forward.
Thank you so much, Ms. Adolphson. Laura, are there any other questions?
Yes, we have a couple questions from Kim, and then I saw Heather raise her hand. So let me read Kim's questions out loud. And Kim, if you would like to elaborate on this, feel free to unmute yourself. So Kim would, her first question is, how are we supporting families with technical issues? The second question is, do we know how many families are without internet service?
I'll try and answer that one. First, we have hotspots that we're offering for any family that wants a hotspot, and so we should have no families that do not have internet access. We've had significantly more families pick up hotspots in so far this go around than we did in the spring when we went to distance learning. Now, potentially over the next week, as we make contact with families that we haven't had contact with, because that's one of the things staffs are going to be doing, reaching out to kids that they haven't had contact with. We could find out a family says we don't have access. Well, then we'll make sure that we get them access. And then in terms of supporting families with technical issues, I would encourage everybody to look at the parent hub that is on the website. There are significant resources for families on that website in multiple languages, as well as our tech services is supporting families. And I believe Keith, who's on this call as well, because I was in Trent's office today, Keith was even getting some of those calls and supporting families as well.
Keith, would you like to make a comment on that?
I don't have any additional information other than that, you know, today there was a lot of calls coming through, and just trying to do the best that we can and forward it.
Okay, thank you. Heather, I saw your hand raised and it went down. Would you like to?
Excuse me, Laura, may I just comment?
Oh yeah, you bet.
Thank you. My apologies for, I just wanted to respond, Kim. In addition to what Superintendent Kern was saying, we continue to review and respond to the needs of our families. And so we do hope to grow the resources and information that's available for families who may need assistance on digital literacy, or their students, or perhaps having additional videos available. We're also entertaining possible mini trainings for families. So we definitely understand this is a great need and are looking forward to responding to that need. Okay, Laura, if you'd like to proceed with the question.
Sure, thank you, Lisa. Heather, it looked like you just rejoined. Would you like to ask a question? I saw your hand raised a few minutes ago.
I'm a little afraid. Hopefully my internet doesn't just cut out. So I'll try to keep it short and sweet, and hopefully you all can hear me. They keep dropping. Something that I guess it's more of a consideration than a question, but maybe it could be partially a question as well. When we're making top-down decisions, especially on a pivot, I understand that it's essential and it's beyond even San Juan's decision, the timelines and the laws and the mandates for us to, kind of do these hasty community engagements to create, these plans to give feedback. I'm concerned, and I think it would behoove us to figure out some questions that we need answers to that can help inform our LCAP post-COVID. Because there's a lot that we've not experienced, a lot of impact that the student groups that have historically and continually been underserved within school districts are going to be that much more impacted. And it's essential that we know and get a jump start on information gathering so that we can make informed decisions as we continue to move forward. Because anything that we respond to, it will be tangential, excuse me, I can't even speak today. And, we haven't even gotten to the thick of things. And so I kind of want to name that. I would be interested to hear what sort of information San Juan is currently gathering, and then maybe some considerations on questions that we can gather, in these meetings while we're engaging with folks so that we could really hit the ground running to get ahead of things long term. Hopefully that made sense.
Heather, you make sense all day, every day.
She does.
I feel like I'm all over the place.
I would like to acknowledge your consideration and your question and agree wholeheartedly that to ensure that we're getting organic and grassroots responses from our students and our families, it's important to really work collectively with those individuals, with our parents and with our groups who can help develop and craft those questions that are most meaningful and really getting at what the experience is of our students and our community members and our families and staff. So there will be opportunity as we continue to work together. Again, as mentioned earlier, it's our commitment that this is an ongoing process that's really just beginning for us, not only as a PAC, but I think as a school community, as a district, to identify what those questions look like. There were surveys over after we began the distance learning in spring of last year. There will be questions and some focus group questions for this upcoming review of the learning continuity plan, but there continues to be more opportunity for development of those questions as we work together. So I look forward to that, and perhaps we can create a subcommittee or have greater discussion at an upcoming LCAP PAC meeting. So thank you. Laura, any other questions?
Yes, we have 3 more, and the order will be Kim Brown. Looks like she has a follow-up question. So Kim, if you'd like to come off mute and ask your question, then we will follow up with Chelsea. She has a question about Chromebooks. And Tom, I noticed you had raised your hand as well. Okay. So Kim, would you like to speak?
Sure. So mine was concerning the technical issues. The technical issues were more so like how helping parents who don't know how to use like the parent portal, the student portals, who don't really know how to navigate through Google Classroom or Zoom, and who they need to contact for those issues, or even to understand how to navigate and use those programs. That's what I meant by technical issues. So like today, there was a lot of, I have 3 students in San Juan, and all of them were dropping. And I'm sure it was pretty much everyone. But there were parents my neighbors who came by asking me, what's going on? Is this happening to you? How do we navigate through this? And they did this just at the beginning of the pandemic as well, not knowing how to navigate through these programs, not really knowing how to use Zoom, not knowing how to set things up on the computer. And so who do they contact, and are we getting the information to our parents to let them know who they can contact and to get the resources to get the help?
Can I take this one?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead, Ms. Schnapp.
Awesome. So I really appreciate that question, because I think it's something that, we're trying to approach this from a lot of different lenses. And one of the things we're really working on is the community building at the school site. So we want our parents reaching out to their teachers to find out what the needs are. Mr. Kern has also created work teams for our administrators so that they can gather feedback from our families to find out what they need, and then really handle it from that community lens of what are the supports that our families need. And then, again, his charge is we need to be responsive. So when we see areas or gaps, or barriers, how are we responding? And so these are areas that we would hope, you know, we always want our families to feel like they can go to their school sites first. And then also Lisa and her team have the Parent Hub, where there's a lot of resources as well. But I think, you know, between those two lenses, we can solve a lot of problems.
Okay, but is there something that has been created, messaging, to where it goes out to all families to say, this is what you should do in case of this?
Yes, those are
Because
all
some
in
of
the
them just
Parent
opt out. Like when the pandemic first started, we had families in our neighborhood who just said, I'm not doing this. They just opted out. I don't understand it. I can't figure it out.
So Kim, we can let you know that when when the pandemic hit and we were trying to assemble information for families,
Right.
yes, there were resources online, and we know that's not always the primary place for everyone's going to go. But those resources were also created for our practitioners, for the staff, so that they could help walk parents through how to navigate Google Classroom. So if they walked onto a campus or they were talking to a teacher, that there was a resource that I, as a staff member, could help that parent walk through. So some of it is just direct contact and working with, you know, the people you're most comfortable with, but there are resources online, and there was social media information and emails that were sent out to parents to let them know that there were resources that they could access. But again, to Kristen's point, there's always ways that we can improve and do better. And that is our commitment, and certainly something we're working on trying to do kind of like at a local level, so that we have folks that can help families on campuses or closer to their homes, but also have various resources online that they could watch and make it really simple. So we're definitely working on that, and would love more feedback from you, and make sure that we also see that represented in our plan, the plan that we're talking about, so we can make sure we implement that.
Hey, Lisa, let me add a little bit more on that too, because and I sent a link to Laura to the hub.
Yes, I just put it in the chat.
And Kristen alluded to this about that each school site, because unfortunately we have actually sent this out in most of our channels that we normally send out, but you know, this is one of the challenges we constantly are faced with, is what is the best way to communicate with people? Because sometimes when you send so much information out, it's challenging to get it to them. But under the Fall 2020 Hub, for example, under the tab of Family Resources, there's an entire section on technology support. It even says for technology support for Chromebooks, here's a number call. On the Chromebook 101, which shows you how to log in, it's in English, Spanish, Arabic, Farsi, Russian, and Ukrainian. And then it goes down to Google Classroom, Guide to Google Classroom for San Juan families. You click on there, it shows you really all information about it, how to log into Google Classroom, and then has some other resources in there specifically about Zoom and all of those languages, information about the parent portal. So one of the things that we heard when we surveyed parents in the spring was that they felt like there was communication coming out from the district, but not the school level. And we've really, and the majority of people get their information from the school site. So we really challenged the school sites, and that's the plans they're developing, is what is your support around one of the pieces of communication to support students, parents, and staff. So there is, I mean, you could go through this hub and find all kinds of information about all types of supports. And it's an outstanding tool to help people.
I think so too. I'm looking at it, but I just question like how many people are visiting and clicking those specific tabs. Because I know just in my neighborhood alone, many of the families, they feel lost.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think this would be a great discussion, and maybe it would be good for my superintendent's parents advisory council as well, because we we communicate in many ways, but it doesn't get out there. So what would be the recommendation of ways to communicate that we're not currently, that you think would, that people would hear and grab onto?
Text.
And so because, like, I mean, we probably, for example, on social media, we have the largest footprint on social media as probably any district in this region. We've been using that more and more. Often all of these, this information will go out in those channels. It's hard to find the one channel, and we try and use multiple channels, but I think that's probably a conversation for a much later day, because that's an entire discussion in and of itself. But ways that we can communicate to families information that we're not already currently doing. So again, for another date probably, because that would be all night.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. I also did put that link into the chat. Everyone should be able to see it. You could copy and paste that to another document, or you can open it up from your screen as well. We have Chelsea next, then Tom, and then Isis and Beatrice. So.
Hi, this is Chelsea. So Kim, I just want to say, I myself was having trouble today trying to help my son navigate all the different platforms. And so I can only imagine a parent who is not a native English speaker trying to navigate. And so to your point, Superintendent, my recommendation would be a single hotline. And that if your principal was sending out we get those robocalls, and it said, like, if you have any problems, you call this number. And then it just was over and over, it's this number. And I see I appreciate the website and all the different links, but it is still hard to navigate. I think if there was just like a single hotline number, that would be my only recommendation. My actual question was about Chromebooks and about whether the district has had any difficulty acquiring the number of Chromebooks necessary for all the students who are in need, and whether we have enough Chromebooks for all the kids. That's my question.
So we do have, and first I would say, for example, I think the percentage of people that listen to our robocalls is, I believe, around 40%. So that's one of the examples of a channel we try and use. And so we've got to use as many channels as we can. So I appreciate that. We do have enough Chromebooks for all of the students. We ordered back in May an additional 10,000 Chromebooks, and then I think we made another order of 6,000 Chromebooks. We were way out in front of other districts in terms of that first purchase. We were just notified in the last 2 weeks that those Chromebooks were going to be delayed until the end of September. Which caused us great pause at the time. We found out today that an order of 1,000 is coming in next week. But every student, when we did Chromebook distribution, every student that needed a Chromebook received a device. What we're going to do is, some of them are a little bit older devices. They still work, they still operate. But as we get new devices in, we're going to trade those out for other devices. Because if we have the newer devices, we want those in the hands of students.
Great, that's good news. Job well done there.
Well, you know, I was reading today, for example, Oakland Unified, 7,000 of their 35,000 students, so 20%, have no device or access to internet. And our big challenge all along was that we need to make sure that if we are indeed district-wide distance learning, that we have the devices for all students. One of the things that we even did is we purchased, instead of just Chromebooks for our, I believe it's TKK and 1, Kristen or Melissa, correct me, that's the 3 grades that are going to have the touch devices, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And those devices, because they're much easier for our younger kids to use than the keyboard or a mouse pad. We ordered those again way back in May. Those are still to be delivered at another point. So when we get those in, we'll trade all of those out for those younger kids, because those will be easier to use.
Yes, I believe you're speaking to the choir here. I have a 3rd grader and we struggled a lot with the mouse today.
Yeah, it's a challenge. And it's something that we're hoping that helps out for the younger kids.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea and Mr. Kern. Just a quick comment from Kim regarding this conversation. She had said she would recommend text, and one single number sounds great. So we will pivot back to Tom for your question, and then we have Isis and Beatrice next.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate you know, the website and the parent hub, but I guess my question and concern was for sort of the worst case scenario, a parent who has never used a computer at all, of a second grader. They call the teacher on the phone, leave a message. How do they get up and running? Is it the teacher then that is supposed to walk the parent through or meet with the parent? Is that a teacher's responsibility? Or is that something that the teacher then contacts somebody at a district level, and then somebody at the district level reaches out to that parent? So can you kind of describe what the mechanism would be for that sort of worst case scenario?
Lisa, I'd like to jump in.
Thank you, Ms. Bassanelli.
So our teachers are the frontline responders with parent inquiries if a parent were to reach out. I'm very confident that our teachers would attempt to resolve the issue themselves, but if they needed assistance, they would then work up the chain at their school site. Our tech services department responds to multiple help tickets from our parents, in addition to the help tickets from our staff. So we have several mechanisms and chains to be able to respond to parent support. Back in the spring, we had cultural brokers working directly with parents to help them navigate and be able to turn on computers, get online. So we have a lot of safety nets in place, but at the lowest level, if the teacher got the response, they would try to mitigate that themselves. But if they needed support because they were teaching a lesson, for example, then they would reach out to their administrator and we would support there.
Okay, and so I guess the process then is, if the teacher can't help them, then the teacher then contacts, is it their site administrator? And the site administrator would open a, either try to help them or open a tech support ticket for them, for somebody at the district. Because I'm just thinking that a lot of teachers are probably, you know, overwhelmed with just trying to get things going. So, and I would guess site administrators are too. So I'm wondering how much of this is centralized.
Yeah, let me jump in on this. So one of the things, there's more people than just a teacher or the site administrator that can address this issue. We have, like, we've got schools this week, and a lot of the schools, for example, I think the middle school division, where they reached out to all students before the year even started, and they're asking, do you know how to log in? Do you know? So we're doing a lot of proactivity around that. But we have folks that we talked about prior to this year starting that need to kind of reinvent their support role. We got agreements with CSEA. We even got agreements with our Teamsters, which is our bus drivers, that they're going to do other types of works. So at the school site level directly, that the principal may be informed, but there may be 3 or 4 classified people that jump in and work directly to support those families if there's a technology need like that.
And I think Mr. Nelson, also that's part of what, you know, we're going to continue to ongoingly review and refine as we really see what the need is as the year continues. So we will make note of that question as well, and I'm sure we'll have further discussion as we learn more about the tech needs of our students and families. Laura, next question.
Yes, we have a comment from Beatrice via Isis. And again, we want to thank you, Isis and Beatrice, for your patience as we try to make sure that we provide equal access to everybody.
Okay, it just so happens she just got disconnected again with her phone. So, but it's okay. So I wrote down her question, or well, her comment. And she agrees with the fact that the technology issue. She mentioned how Martha had to do step-by-step instructions for, like, you know, walk her through it on the phone. And so having this resource online, she's like, well, if a person cannot even turn on a computer on their own, how do you expect them to go to HPT, you know, online and go to Google if they don't know the first thing about it? So she was, so she said, honestly, what helped me was that I had a direct person I can call, and they said, hey, you know what, this is actually what it looks like. It looks like this. You click on this, you do this and that. So if there was a team, because she feels like obviously teachers already are busy online, and so when she's doing that, or when the teachers are already doing that, we should have a specific team to be able to call, or that's their job, to go online or say, okay, what is your trouble? Let me troubleshoot you this, instead of taking the time from teachers, from other people who are just, I know that there's family members is what she was saying, but it should be a team that works within the district that's all equal for all the schools, that they can be that main resource. And be a phone call, because parents can do a phone call. They can't just turn on a computer. What makes you think they're gonna be able to print out that instruction?
Right. No, I appreciate that comment and that consideration. I think we definitely see technology as an area of improvement and ongoing growth and learning. So we will make note of that, and again, encourage Beatriz to have that consideration when we look at the continuity plan at the end of the month, and make sure that we are looking at strategies and ways to address some of those needs. So Laura, are there any other questions? Okay, so I think we're going to get ready to wrap up. We have...
Yes, this is Laura. Sorry, Lisa. I don't see any more questions in the chat, and I don't see any more hand raised. So if anybody would like to ask one last question, that'd be great.
Okay, seeing none.
Is there anybody that would like to ask one last question? You can enter it in the chat box, or you can come off mute. Raise your hand and come off mute.
See, yes, this is Tom. Can you hear me? I've got a...
Yes.
Just so we're clear, this is the final question for the evening, so we can move forward.
Okay, it's if you could just give a quick recap, because I'm wondering, for the purposes of the committee, just for the clarity, when will we see like the first draft of the learning continuity plan? And well, I guess that's and is what's being written now, can we get an idea of what, if we can't see a draft, what might go into it, is what might be going into it in some of the information that's on the parent hub?
So I can comment that we are currently in the development of the content of the continuity plan. I'm not able to give you a specific date regarding particular document. However, what I do want to reiterate with this committee is the fact that part of the continuity plan is a memorialization of the activities that are already happening within our district. So many of the activities that may have been connected already to our reopening of our schools will be part of what we will be reporting on in the continuity plan, and will be part of that that piece of the plan. So with some of the information that has already been shared in previous board meetings, and some of the efforts that are being documented on the hub, the fall 2020 hub, that definitely is a partial representation of what will be in the continuity plan, or reflected in the continuity plan.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So with that, I think we are at our our last part here. So next steps, my apologies, there's another, just really quickly before we adjourn, just a reminder for all of our LCAP PAC members, our next meeting is August 27th, and within that meeting, these are 2 items for your information that will be on the agenda for your information. So with that, I think we are done for the evening.
Yes, we just need a motion to adjourn, or do we not? Oh, we don't have quorum, right?
Right.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so we're good.
We'd like to thank you all for joining us. Ms. Gonzalez, any last comments? Mr. Nelson?
I just wanted to say, thank you very much, Lisa and Laura, and thank you, Superintendent Kern and Dr. McKibben for attending, and as well as the rest of the staff that has been here to support answers to these questions. Thank you. And in between now and the 27th, like I said, in particular, LCAP PAC members and nominated PAC members, please feel free to reach out to me for any questions, or if you just want to ask about general processes or anything having to do with the district, please feel free, and as well as even members that are attending as guests or members of the public. So thank you again, everybody. I'll turn it back over to you, Lisa. Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez? Okay. Dr. McKibben, are there any final comments you'd like to make, or?
Again, once again, thanks for attending, and most of you stayed on the whole time. That's pretty impressive. And also remember, from time to time, you may want to look at the website of the district in terms of, for example, that Ms. Bassanelli presented a lot of the different kinds of things that we're doing that are new and so forth. So I encourage you to look at the commission meets the board meets the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month, and there is an agenda each time, and so it gives you an idea of some of the new kinds of things. Most every meeting we have a different kind of emphasis, particularly on one area, that may help you answer some of your questions in terms of where we're going and what we're doing, and the kinds of barriers that we're trying to break down and really working on. I also want to commend you all for your really great questions tonight, and that's the thing. These are the kinds of things that build the kind of continuity and the kind of message and that we're trying to make, and trying to have you be part of the team that moves this district forward. And we really appreciate your help. Thanks.
Okay, and with that, actually, I just wanted to mention that Heather's internet keeps dropping, but she wants to convey her thanks to all of you so much. She thought it was a great presentation. She's looking forward to the next meeting and getting to work. So with that, we'll end the meeting. Want to thank everybody for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Take care and have a good evening.